Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to our second ever episode of the Logic Over Impulse podcast.
That's right. Finally got a name.
I'm your host, Harrison Bell.
This is Mir
Welcome back.
What do we got on the agenda today, buddy?
Well, let's jump right into it. You and I think wanted to talk about, obviously, very big news in the last few days. Tariffs just came out.
That's right.
President Trump announced them. There's been a crazy shock in the stock market, but I think in particular we wanted to talk about the job market and kind of our experience as, young adults who are supposed to be entering the job market in the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
How all this is going to play into that. What are your thoughts?
Definitely. So just want to talk about kind of our experiences. What's been your experience right now finding an internship? What kind of sector are you looking into? What's your experience so far like?
Yeah, so this is a topic of contention for me, for sure, in general, because I've always been a bit of an entrepreneurial guy. I want to kind of skip the whole JOB situation. The dreaded JOB, man. I've always kind of wanted to skip that because I don't believe that it's how you build. First of all, I mean, what's the point of a job, right? It's to provide security for you and your family and it's to contribute. That's number one. And number two is to, find meaning in fulfillment and meaning in life. Right. And I don't think that, the jobs that are so popular here at NYU and at other academic institutions these days, what
are the jobs that you're talking about?
Okay, sure. So let's, for example, finance and consulting, right? Mm-hmm. Going into those two. Those are the two big ones for guys that aren't going into engineering.
Yes.
Maybe, professional fields like law and medicine. Yep. Those are the two big ones, right?
Okay.
I don't think that either of those brings any kind of fulfillment or happiness or financial security the way that being an entrepreneur does.
Well, do you think that some people might be fulfilled by doing their job and doing it really well? But particularly in consulting or finance, I think some people really enjoy it.
Sure. I haven't heard of many people who love their jobs in either of those two fields.
Really?
At least not at a analyst level, right? So let's clarify the chain of command. As far as I understand from talking to other folks who work, in these fields, you start out by putting in your sweat equity, right? As my dad used to say, put in your sweat equity.
Sure.
And you put in 2 to 3 years as an analyst where you're kind of doing a lot of grunt work. You're not doing anything. You don't have real say over any decisions, right? You're analyzing securities. You're analyzing, the markets, how things are going in the world, right? And in the U.S. economy.
Sure.
Essentially providing support to those above you. Next.
Well, you're basically, you're doing the dirty work and you're doing the Excel work and you're doing the work that everybody needs to get done, but nobody wants to get done.
Exactly right.
Okay.
Exactly right. And so because we're being very transparent on this podcast, right, we can talk about some of the numbers that compensation that these jobs provide, right?
Oh, we should.
Important.
Let's do it.
So as an analyst in investment banking, which is a subfield of finance and potentially and consulting as well, my understanding is that you make over 6 figures as a base salary.
About 100 to 110 if you're in a big city like New York.
Yep. There are parts of some, finance. Sometimes you make less, at a smaller firm or like Mir said, at another city. 70 to 100, which is a lot of money, right? The median the median family annual income in America is around $77,000.
Is that annual or is that individual?
Annual for a family.
Family or individual.
It's very low.
You're saying family.
Family.
Right.
Family.
Of course, that includes farmers, people on welfare, people with.
That's exactly right. That includes people with a lower income, obviously.
Okay.
So, but that's the median, not the average.
Oh,
now,
okay.
Right. So, about 5 years ago, that's actually up from 61,000 in 2018, 6-7 years ago.
Right.
But so obviously these jobs in finance and consulting, you're doing really well. Now, obviously here in that's in New York, and cost of living is astronomical here.
So does that cut it in New York? 70,000?
So remember, okay, for argument's sake, let's say 85,000. Okay, let's say 85,000.
Sure.
And let's say you get a bonus also of 50,000. So at the end of the year, you go.
Oh, well, the 110,000 figure, that you're just talking about the base salary.
Correct.
Because the bonus, of course, might also come pretty close to your base salary as well.
That's exactly right. Pretty close. Not quite as much. Maybe 70 for 100,000, 70, 60, 70. But
so
what would be
sizable. What would be the total compensation for an analyst?
So let's assume an analyst is making over in Hoboken, New Jersey. Right?
Okay.
Let's say at Goldman, where they have an office there.
Yep.
Goldman Sachs, that is. It's a big investment bank here in America. Let's say they're making 75 to 85,000. Okay, let's say 85,000, and then they get a $50,000 bonus for their troubles too. Assuming they're living in Jersey, that's a little bit cheaper, but it's still very expensive. If you want a decent 1-bedroom apartment, what do you think? Let's say 1 bedroom. Let's not say studio. What do you think they're going to be paying?
I think for
4,
a 1-bedroom in
4,000?
Hoboken, probably 3,000 to 4,000.
For a decent quality, right? Because you're an investment banker. You're feeling good about yourself. You don't want to live in
3,500
in the trenches, right?
Yeah,
okay, let's say 3,500. Our buddy, he pays 4,000 for that place in the Eclipse, but that's a newer building, and so let's say 3,200. Okay,
sure.
So let's annualize that. That's what, almost $40,000 a year.
Yeah, 36.
For that, that's obviously gonna have to come out of your post-tax money.
Yeah.
So, state and local taxes here in New York, right? You're bringing home, let's say your total annual compensation is 85 plus 50. So that's, I'm not a math guy, $135,000. Put away 25 to 30% of that for taxes, minimum.
Really?
Minimum.
I would say closer to 40 to 50.
No. It's not quite that high. Because when you look at our progressive bracket, but okay, so let's say you put away, 30% of that money for taxes. You're paying $40,000 just for housing alone.
Yeah.
You don't feel rich here in New York City.
And you said you're making what, 80?
85 plus $50,000.
So 135. So you put away about 40 for housing. Then you put away
another 40 for taxes.
Yep.
You're left with not a lot.
That's right. That's right. But really, do you these investment bankers, they work a long time. They work from about 6:30 a.m. when they wake up. They don't work for that long, but they work from their day starts at 6:30 a.m.
Yes.
It ends at around midnight.
Yes.
And they basically get around 6 hours of free time at home. All of it, which goes on to sleep.
Absolutely.
So, do you want a nice apartment? Is that important?
Okay, maybe not. And a lot of the kids going into investment banking are obviously very smart people, right?
Oh yeah.
So they understand that they're going to be putting in their sweat equity, right? And then they're going to start as the analyst, and then hopefully 3 to 4 years later, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, they're going to move up one more level to associate.
Right.
Okay, associate, you're making a little bit more money. Probably 200 plus a nice $100,000 bonus, something around that.
That's really solid.
Bank.
And at this point, you're about 25,
right.
26.
Right. However, there's no guarantee that you're going to get from associate to vice president, which is the next step up.
So would you stay at associate for the rest of your career, or what?
I think you just get sacked. I think you can't. I don't know. There's probably reorganizations or all sorts of things happen. But my understanding is that if you're not cutting it, there's no room for you in these jobs.
Right.
And as an associate, you have a little bit more leeway. You have a team that you're working with of analysts that report to you. You have support. You have a little bit more say in decisions, but it's not like you are able to hop on the corporate jet with CEO Jamie Dimon and
of course not. That guy does not know who the hell you are.
He don't know who you are.
Right? All right. Well, let me ask you a question then, because these are the jobs that you're saying guys like us would be going into, because neither of us are engineering majors. Neither of us are pre-med. We're kind of on a pre-law / kind of these finance / consulting jobs.
Yes.
What is, if you had a magic wand right now in your hand and you said, oh, I can get whatever job I want. I can get whatever position I want. Of course, reasonably. You can't go to VP. You can't even go to associate.
Right.
I can get whatever starting job I want in any field, at any company. I want to know the company, the field that you're going into, and also why you would do that.
Got it. Okay. I would probably, that's a tough question. And there's two sides of me that would answer that. There's my heart, and then there's my head. Okay.
Right. Okay. Let's go heart first.
Do you want to go heart first?
Heart
Okay.
first.
Heart says skip finance altogether, right? Because let me preface this, right? I don't have any tangible skills like knowing how to code. So I can't bring that to the workplace. So when I say that I finance or consulting would be interesting to me, that's pretty much all. Like, if you talk about a prestigious job, that's pretty much all I have
That is
access
available to you?
That's all that's available to me,
Okay.
right? So let's just preface that.
Okay. Well, wait a minute.
But to answer your question,
I want to.
okay,
Yeah, I want to hear
sure.
about what your heart would be saying
Yeah,
too.
yeah, yeah.
Yes.
So to answer your question about the heart, I would forego the job, the opportunity,
And do what?
Right. I would love to start my own real estate firm. At first, I think there's.
What would your real
think,
estate firm do?
So I think I would be investing in a lot of apartments. I really believe in the multifamily model. You buy an apartment, you leverage yourself a little bit, right? You obviously have to put some money down, and you essentially pay off the debt using the rental income, right? And there's all sorts of ways to bring your tax liability down with real estate that you don't have with a W-2 job, for example, like working as an investment banker.
Okay.
So it may not be as glamorous at first, but I believe that leads to more long-term wealth. Now,
Okay.
that's not
Well,
necessarily
wait a minute.
long-term life goals to be a real estate investor.
Sure.
I want to, that's kind of, get your foot off the ground, although sometimes that can take a while, but,
Yeah.
but I don't know, venture capital firm or starting a hedge fund. That all sounds pretty cool to me. And I believe, like, while you're young, this is the time to be doing this stuff, right?
Yeah.
This is the time to be taking risks, not to be doing what everybody else does.
I agree.
And really enjoying and understanding that we can eat top ramen every meal for the next 10 years, but not for 11 or 12 or 13.
I
right?
agree. Now, what I meant kind of more is not what would you do if you had a magic wand, because we both know we would both start a business.
Yes. Okay.
We would both become entrepreneurs.
So you want me to pick a job?
I want you to pick a job. I want you to pick a
a job.
company, and I want you to say why you would pick that company. And now this is thinking with your head.
Yes.
I guess is that where you were going?
Exactly right.
Great.
This is thinking with my head.
Okay.
Understand, which, I actually, maybe that's not the best analogy, because I really do believe that if I really was thinking with my head, I could forego all this nonsense recruiting, quote unquote, stuff that everybody does, and it's just you're a rat in a wheel.
Right.
Okay, so let me tell you this. It's gonna be a smaller firm, right?
Really? Okay.
But it's gonna be it'll be a prestigious one. Either a small real estate private equity
I need
firm.
a name. I just need it.
All right, Citadel Securities.
Okay. Great.
Started in Chicago. It's now headquartered in Miami.
Great.
Right.
And you would be an analyst.
I guess I would be an analyst, and the reason I would do it for free, right? To learn the skills, learn how to work hard, put in that sweat equity, learn how to be, not a banker, but learn how to invest in
Definitely
in equities. And
how would you live if you were doing it for free?
Okay, so I would live with my parents, actually. So I would get my parents to move to Miami. No, I'm kidding. but I realistically, I do believe in the living with your parents model.
100%.
For it's not shameful at all. Let me tell you, you and I, for context, Mir and I worked at Killer Burger in Portland.
We did. It was the first job we ever did together.
First job we ever did.
Not
First
the
of
last.
many. First
not
of many.
The last. Yes.
And it was an incredible experience for you and I, because we do come from a relatively affluent neighborhood and community. We went to an independent school.
Yeah, we did. We went to a college prep school in Portland. That's where we met.
So working at a true minimum wage burger job was I think something very worthwhile for our time.
Well, it was in a way eye-opening to be working with people and other people that are not necessarily they don't have large aspirations for themselves, and not to say that they have given up. It's just to say that there's just never been a part of their family's culture.
This is actually
which is so normal and so fine, and I totally get it.
Totally.
100%.
I'm not talking about the work flipping burgers itself like that. Yes, I'm absolutely agreeing with you, talking about who we were surrounded by, right?
Yes.
And
where were you going with the Killer Burger?
So one of our coworkers had aspirations to go into corporate law and to make it out of the Killer Burger trap, but he was doing things that seemed contrary to this.
Of course.
That kind of, it makes you, it really opens your eye to that, okay. He was buying a lot of motorcycles, right?
Yeah.
And he was living in his own apartment.
Exactly.
That's what he was doing.
Even though his parents live in Portland?
Even though his parents live in Portland.
That's right.
And he was he was younger than I am now at the time.
He was about 20?
He was about 20. He was younger than I am now.
Yeah.
And he was...
so you're saying living with your parents as a means to save money is a really good and valuable thing?
Absolutely. As a means to save money,
Definitely.
as a means to, I mean, okay, that's money's at the heart of it, really. But at the same time, you don't need to move out so quick, right? We have this culture, especially here at NYU, where people just rush to get started in life, just go. Like our coach Tim Whittle is like, Harrison, slow down.
That's right. That's right.
And you have to understand, slow down. Right? It's okay.
Yeah, of course. Being independent is a big part of it. Making a name for yourself is a big part as part of the capitalist society, making a name for yourself, making a buck for yourself, especially when you come from a rich or affluent family. It's something that you think about consistently. You think about being on the same level as your parents, being kind of at least as successful and hopefully more successful than them. So a lot of people that come to NYU are, they come from a pretty wealthy background. So they need to get into it as soon as they can. They need to not take risk. They can't afford to take risk, because if they take risk, they might not be as successful as their parents at the end of the day. So that's why an internship is important. Now, I'll tell you why an internship is important to me, because we're both applying to them. So you'll say, well, maybe the viewer might be looking at this YouTube video or Spotify or Apple Music.
Put your money where your mouth is.
That's right.
Guys.
You'll say, put your money where your mouth is. And we will be putting our money where our mouth is, because we truly believe in the business entrepreneurial spirit. However, what I learned through our first real estate venture is that it's important to learn from somebody. This is one of the most important things that I got away from our business, that ultimately, we kind of had to conclude when we moved to New York because of certain, conflicts that we had with, not being able to do it, remotely. But what I learned from that business, buddy, and I think, tell me if you agree, is you need to learn from somebody. And if consulting and finance is something that I would be super interested in. To answer my own question about what would you want to do, I'm thinking about consulting in a pretty big way, only because it's something that helps businesses grow their brand, and helping businesses in different sectors is something that's really interesting. What do you have to say about that? What do you think about consulting? Is that a good path?
Yes, I think yes. In your particular case, I think it's the same as finance. Realistically, I think you're doing two things for yourself. Number one, you're getting exposure to the industry, right? And with that comes connections. It comes backdoor paths to getting things done. Sometimes, yes. Right? And let me tell you, starting your own business after you've been in the business is 10 times easier than starting from scratch when you have no connections and no experience. So for example, a good buddy of mine, his family friend worked in wealth management at Goldman Sachs for a very long time, and he built up a very big book there, right? A very big clientele base.
Yes.
They all loved him, right? And I think he was managing hundreds of millions of dollars of people's money, at least with a team. But the stakes were high.
Definitely.
Right? These are people's life savings. So one day he said, you know what? I'm out of here. These Goldman Sachs guys, you know how much money I'm making them, and they're paying me a fixed salary.
Well, right? when you're an employee, this is the biggest thing, is you are actually working for somebody, and that somebody is benefiting off your labor. Otherwise, they wouldn't hire you if they weren't, because the cost would just be higher than the money that you bring in.
Right.
They need profit. That's what we're here. That's everything we're here about.
Everything.
So definitely, he was definitely bringing them more value than the Goldman Sachs was bringing him, from what it sounds like. Of
course. So he had his book, right, of clients and accounts, and he decided to leave and start his own firm, right. And obviously a very big legal battle came out of this, right? As this is a tried and true process, but it's not always true, because sometimes you get hit by the legal battle, and Goldman has a right to at least try to sue, right? But he apparently, I don't know the details, but he had been preparing for many years, for this moment. And so he left, and he took a big book of clients that all loved him, not Goldman Sachs.
Of course.
And I think his firm now is worth, I think he has about $800 million of assets under management.
Wow.
And he's making 1% of that a year. So
that's really impressive.
He's bringing in $8 million a year. And that's, let me tell you, it's a lot of money. Sure, some people, if you start a hedge fund, you can be bringing in $8 billion in a good year. But I think the lesson is that's a lot more than he was making at Goldman. And it's definitely an example of something that would, something along the lines of what you and I would.
Yeah. So this is what I mean about experiences. This is a person that got a lot of experience, got a lot of actual hands-on time with clients in the industry. He's a very knowledgeable guy about the industry, leaves, starts his own firm, does really well. That's something that, that's a success story, a very kind of appealing success story that I'm seeing. I want to talk about experience as well, in a different way, which is that a lot of people that I see getting internships in the positions that we're applying for, which, by the way, it's a very tight job market.
Extremely tight.
Which I want to, here's what I want to explore a little bit. It's a very low unemployment rate.
Yes,
but
it is.
a very tight job market.
Yes, it is. I read somewhere that they added 220,000 jobs.
Well, these are not jobs that we're applying for. That's for damn sure.
No. But the unemployment rate went up.
Oh, it went up a little bit.
A little bit, but it is still relatively low. But and the job market is incredibly tight. I keep seeing these Reddit stories on NYU where kids are like, "Gosh, I can't get a job." You can't get a job from NYU, then where can you get a job from?
Well, exactly.
Harvard?
By the way, college these days is not a differentiator. Everybody goes to college. Right. You're not a different person by going to college. And NYU is a great, very prestigious institution, and a lot of people would love to go here. However, it just doesn't help you anymore get the jobs that you're looking for. You need internship experience. So now we're sophomores, and we're currently applying for junior year 2026 roles, and we're looking at it, and the people that we see getting these jobs, albeit at big companies, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, these are people that have 2 to 3 internships under their belt already in this field, and they're the ones that are getting jobs. I'm saying, well, we have one summer under our belt. We're sophomores right now, so we have had one summer, and during that summer, Harrison and I were both working as marketing analysts at Nike, traveling around and doing a bunch of golf work for them, under the golf brand director. It was a great opportunity that we were extremely grateful for, and we feel like it's a great addition to the resume. It's not enough.
not actually. So financially, that was obviously where we brought in, Mir and I, obviously we do a lot together. That's where we brought in the majority of our revenue from the summer. However, we had another gig going on the side, which is what I'm more proud of, frankly, which is our real estate wholesaling. And that's business.
The other thing. So not only did we do Nike as a kind of a show that we can work for somebody, but we also started a real estate business, and we actually made money on our own, starting it from scratch.
Starting a business from absolute
scratch. We had
scratch.
clients, we had an investor network, we had clients that were coming to us and asking, "Hey, do you have any homes for sale?" I mean, we actually were successful in that sense. And unfortunately, that just doesn't get valued in this market for the jobs that we're applying for. And that brings me to something that I really wanted to kind of explore and talk about, which is that these firms, they say they're looking for experience, or they at least are looking for experienced interns. However, experience to me sounds like just, kind of evidence that you're able to work under the corporate system. You're able to work for somebody. That's what they're looking for. Are you a person that is able to kind of be submitted into the corporate life? Because if they're looking for internships, like for example, something that we did with Small and Bell Enterprises, I feel is much more impressive than working at a sales job at a dealership or working at a sales job anywhere, matter of fact.
Far more impressive.
Because we are actually getting the hands-on experience. We're actually talking to clients, we're doing cold calls, we're doing all of that, which adds up to a whole lot more valuable, tangible stuff that you can add to the company versus just punching in Excel sheets. But what companies are actually looking for is, can you, Harrison Bell, submit to our corporate system and be kind of subordinate to higher up
people higher on the food chain? Absolutely. So here's one thing that I will note. Anytime that I've tried to get on these networking calls, like they say, because unfortunately I have submitted a little bit to this whole narrative that you need to get a job.
That's fine
right away.
That's understandable.
However, that being said, when I tell the story of Small and Bell Enterprises and what we did, by the way, what we did do is essentially real estate investing, where you don't need to invest any of your own money. Right when you're about to purchase a property, you assign that contract over to another investor, and then you get paid a small percentage fee.
So you're essentially, we were essentially connecting homeowners and home investors in the off market in off market deals that were fully cash.
Yep.
And having the benefit for the owner was that they get to sell their house for cash and very quickly, and the benefit for the investor is that they can, they get
buy
a
it
great
off
deal.
market. They get a great deal. They don't have to pay any of those pesky fees, those pesky realtor fees. Actually, although those are going away these days. But
so keep going.
So essentially, every time that I've talked to these people who might work at a big finance firm or real estate firm, I've talked to a number of people. They are so much more interested in the Small and Bell story than they are about Nike or any of our other experience. Which
100%.
we actually, our other biggest one, I would say, is probably founding our club, our club that's still going on at Catlin today. Talking Sports Initiative. That's actually a really popular thing at Catlin.
Is it really?
It actually is, and that's actually, I'm actually pretty happy that we did that in hindsight.
That was a volunteering experience that Harrison and I started. It was a club at our high school where we were mentoring middle school children to kind of through sports, but to get them an understanding of life more than anything. That I didn't know it was doing well. I didn't know it was still going on. That's great. That's awesome.
So when I'm talking to these folks, they're fascinated by what we did, and they don't care that we were in the red for sure. By the end of summer, we were definitely in the red. Although we weren't in the red all that much, we actually weren't.
We made a lot more money than
we did, but
expected.
We did, but obviously we didn't make enough money that we could sustain life on our own at this point. Let's keep it a buck. But realistically, what these guys, they love to, they ask questions about the experience of getting up and going over to each other's houses like we would do, and then head out in a car and knock on doors, deliver letters, call up agents, call up buyers, go inspect houses, listing houses on the market. We drove down to
underwriting,
underwriting the deals. We drove down to Powers, Oregon, and literally with our own hands rented a U-Haul truck, 26-foot long U-Haul truck. This is
on some very narrow lumber roads,
pretty much at a tiny town of 685 people in Powers, Oregon. It's just not a place that you've ever heard of. And we helped a woman, literally, who was a hoarder, clear out her entire front yard,
so we can get some better pictures for the market.
Side yard, much of her yard, to get just so we could get some better pictures to list it, so we could hopefully assign it over to an end buyer using our liaison, who we also met through online channels, who has actually became somewhat of a buddy of ours over the
definitely
time.
I mean, what that experience is telling us is that we can get up and get it done at the end of the day.
Yes,
and to me, that's much more important than showing up and kind of doing the work that is required of you. Although in a corporate setting, actually, it might be more important that you can work for somebody and punch in an Excel sheet, because showing initiative, showing business kind of prowess, that could be maybe an example of, I don't know, maybe insubordination or something like that. Do you think so, or not as much?
Yeah.
Here's the biggest thing about the business. I'm sure we could have done a lot better, And I'm sure that Power's decision, which ended up costing us over $1,000, and that deal ended up falling through.
Yeah, we lost a lot of money.
We lost $1,000 worth of money on that deal.
Oh yeah,
by making that, but
and a lot more in time, a lot more opportunity cost and time spent.
absolutely.
Energy.
But at the end of the day, we don't know how much of that was attributed to luck, or how much of that was attributed to us actually doing the work, because we got
the signs, man.
The signs. Oh yes, the signs is another great one. You know, in our pursuit of getting some leads for our business from some homeowners, we purchased some signs that you might see on the side of the road. You know, you might be on the highway and you might be, seeing sell your house, cash, quick cash and whatnot. And in our pursuit, we would spend. Did we end up spending over $1,000 on those signs?
Sure, close.
I'm sure we spent pretty close to $1,000 getting around 300, 400 signs. And all we would do every day of the summer is basically drive around low income areas and put up these signs in people's on the side of the road. And basically, here's what happened. It didn't work. These signs, they would get taken down. Homeless people would use them as a roof for the night or whatever. It might, whatever it might be. But what did happen is we got a call one day. I got a call one day from a gentleman, a Vietnamese gentleman. And the Vietnamese gentleman is saying, I would like to sell my house right now, and I need the cash in the next 7 days. We call up every guy that we know. Can we sell this house in 7 days? We have 3 investors lined up all ready to buy this house. One of them going through our real estate agent is saying, we want this house. How much is it going to be? We work out a deal. We work out a price. Pick up the phone. Hello, Vietnamese gentleman. Are you ready to sell? I have a contract for you right here.
I'm ready.
I'm ready. Okay, here it is. Sent it over. Don't hear a word. He needs to sign today. If he wants this house to sell in 7 days, he needs to sign today, because it takes a while to go through escrow and whatnot. So call him again. Have you signed? Doesn't pick up. Call him again. Doesn't pick up. Go over to his house.
That's right.
At this point, I'm put on a nice suit, go over to his house that he's going to sell, supposedly. And I show up and he's there on the phone. He looks stressed. He's talking to some guy in Vietnam.
Some guy.
And he's clearly talking about money. He's has some money problems. So I say, are you ready to sell? He says, give me 15 more minutes. I need to get off this call. After this, I can get it done for you. Okay. So I wait. Okay. I wait around for 15 minutes. I call Harrison. I said, "What do you think of this? Are we good here? Are we good? What's the strategy?" He says, "This is good. Just look around the house. Let's get some more pictures. Let's get some more information on this house for our investors that are interested." So I say, "Hey, Vietnamese gentleman, would you mind if I look in your backyard for a second?" Just because he had he might have had an ADU that was not exactly licensed with the city.
Accessory dwelling unit.
Yeah,
those do need to be licensed.
So I say that doesn't look quite right. Let me can I just look around the backyard? He's still on the phone. He's stressed. He said, "Yeah, just go look back there real quick." I open the backyard door and I see his wife and his 2 children, and they see me and they are terrified. They said, you need to leave right now.
Have put on that suit, man. You could have just been a gardener or something.
I know. They said, what are you here for? I said, oh, I'm just here with your husband. Yeah. We're talking about, this house and whatnot. And she said, you need to leave right now. We are not selling. We're not doing anything about this house. If you don't leave right now, we're going to call the cops on you. I'm over here talking to the homeowner, and he's saying we're all good to go.
And this is
his wife. I say, oh, okay, ma'am. I totally understand. Take a step back. By this point, the Vietnamese gentleman is off the phone call. I say, hey, your wife wasn't exactly too thrilled to see me that day. Oh, and he says, yeah, she found out about you, so the deal is off. However, that deal would have netted us $70,000 had it gone through.
All we needed was one signature. We literally had the buyer
one signature
on, literally with the money ready to wire.
One signature, and we would have made $70,000 in a single deal.
Yes.
And that sign that got us that first lead would have paid off. The sign maybe cost $3, but the whole signs cost maybe $1,000. It would have been a 70 times gain. 70 times gain.
Yes.
Over our investment. And it just didn't work out based on a stroke of luck. My point is, with all this and this whole very funny story, is that we don't know how much of a role luck actually plays. You could do every single right thing and still, the luck might not be on your side that time. That's why you start a business and then you fail. Then you start a business again and then you'll fail again. That some of that might be because of luck. Some of that might be because, you're not very experienced. At some point, that inexperience level goes down. You know what you're doing. That error rate goes down, and your luck, the odds just work out in your favor. The more you do, the less luck will play a factor. And that's my biggest thing. That's why just try. When you're 20 to 30, just try it out. If it doesn't work, you're back at zero and you're 24. You're doing better than a lot of kids at 24.
Yes, you are.
You are. So that's the end of the day. And, I see a lot of people coming up with 5, 10, 15, 20-year plans for their entire career. They have it written out already, in red ink. That's what they're going to do. And my question is kind of why? Why are you doing that?
They're doing too much, as we might say.
As the kids say?
As the kids say, they're doing way too much.
So what do you think about the 5-year plan? I mean, do you subscribe to this?
I don't subscribe to this. I think that it would be better for us to just go and move to the Swiss Alps and ski for a year, and just work over there as and learn about one particular thing and try to become a master at it. Right? Maybe that's code. Now, obviously, that's not necessarily in my cards. Don't want to.
Why not?
Just because I think that wouldn't be staying on track, would it? Wouldn't be staying on track.
Let's talk about staying on track,
right? And so we're surrounded by a plethora of people who seem to have no plan but to stay on track.
Okay, what is staying on track to you?
To stay on track to me is something that is prevalent at a school like NYU more so than it is at a school like our home state, our home school, University of Oregon State, right? I feel like most kids who go to Oregon State, and this might just be because of where they're, where they were raised, kind of like the Killer Burger story, right?
Yeah.
But, they're not thinking about an internship, their sophomore year summer internship, freshman year, even before they get into college. They're not thinking about their junior year internship a year and a half in advance, right?
Yes.
They're not thinking about all this stuff. They're just thinking about, honestly, they're thinking they want to learn there at Oregon State. They want to meet friends and do all the things that you should be doing in college, right? Which is enjoying your classes, trying to enrich your mind and enrich your learning. Making connections is the number one thing, right? It's obvious. Everybody has known since the dawn of time. It's about who you know. It's not about what you know.
That's right.
And so staying on track is this notion where that I see very commonly at these kind of prestigious schools where, kids, they seem to have nothing but, they just seem to be spending an enormous amount of times trying to figure out how they can, advance their career to the next stage that is deemed acceptable by maybe their parents or their peers.
So staying on track, you're saying, is maybe getting a sophomore year internship that is at a smaller company,
it, yes.
Then maybe a junior year internship, then a return offer.
Matter of
move
fact,
on up the ladder,
right? And then let's say they they want to work in. They have absolutely no interest in finance or consulting. Let's use because we've been using those. Let's use those two in finance or consulting. And what they want to do is just work there for 2-3 years, right?
Regardless,
build up a little bit
even
of money,
though they have no interest.
Regardless, and just because that's the thing to do, and then figure it out later. Okay, I'll figure it out later, or say, okay, well, I'm gonna go to medical school or law school, or I want to do a PhD after this. And they're doing everything they can just to get there, and they don't know why they're trying to get there. They just want to get there. Most likely because of their parents. Do I blame them? Not necessarily, because I'm also subscribing to this, and so are you, in a way, right? And I honestly do believe it is a bit of societal pressure. I think it's tough to be, I think it's weirdly in today's day and age. I think it is easier to be successful than ever, but harder than ever to do it the traditional way. What's the traditional way of succeeding, right?
Interesting.
What's the traditional way? It is you work a W-2 job for your whole life, 9 to 5. You invest, you don't go into debt, and you invest money in the stock market and your 401k, you take advantage of your 401k, you take advantage of paid for healthcare, you take advantage of your IRA, a Roth IRA if you make less than $125,000
and then retire at 65.
Retire at 65 and enjoy your Social Security benefits, enjoy Medicare, which is, by the way, an unbelievable program, Medicare, for bringing down the cost of medicine, which obviously is extremely high these days. The healthcare industry is absolutely in shambles, and we need to learn a little bit more about that and discuss that on this podcast. Potentially bring in a couple of guests or two, maybe Richard.
We'll talk about this later.
We will talk about this later. But then that's how you build wealth, right? And that really is actually the easiest way to becoming a millionaire, which is obviously hitting that $1 million in net worth, which is these days unfortunately not very much money. So but it's still so coveted as kind of you've achieved it at one.
That's right. Now you said it's harder than ever. I agree with you, but I want you to kind of expand on this a little bit. You said it's harder than ever to kind of do the traditional. It's easier than ever to be successful, but harder than ever to do it traditionally. Correct. I agree with you. My question is, kind of, why do you think that is? Is it the cost of housing? Is it the job market? What is it exactly?
I think it's part. I think one is social media. What Mark Zuckerberg did, starting Facebook in 2004 or whenever he did it. Maybe 2007. He sparked like a incredible digital revolution that has made so many people wealthy, right? And even we're actually it's not slowing down, right? TikTok 5 years ago when it became really big, right during COVID, maybe even a few months before that, when it became really big, TikTok also did the same thing. It created the next wave of wealthy people just by online digital marketing, posting content online, stuff, entertainment. These things have, and also here's what I like about it too, right? Obviously, social media, we all know, is pretty terrible for most people, especially women.
In terms of the effect on the brain?
In terms of the effect on the brain,
right,
and the effect on how one perceives themselves, right? There are tons of issues that can come from it. But what I do really appreciate is the way that these people are becoming successful is they're doing what they love to do. Maybe that's cooking. That's posting cooking videos on TikTok.
Totally agree.
Maybe it's singing. Maybe it's, dance, whatever. Doing tech reviews of being for the guy who once was a hardcore Apple product lover in 2018 and wrote a few blog posts online. Well, he just started posting a few TikToks. It went viral, and now it's his full-time job.
Honestly,
was
that's
able to
so
quit.
awesome.
He was able to quit being the assistant to the general manager of Killer Burger. Right?
Yeah, that's funny. That's funny,
right? And he can do what he loves.
The thing is, it's all about it's about what you love. It's also about what you're good at as well.
Yes,
Scott Galloway, the great Scott Galloway, Prof G, as we call him, he talks about this a lot. You got to do what you're good at, not what you love always. But doing what you love is one way.
Because sometimes there's,
of course,
right.
I'm just repeating what he's saying. Now, doing what you love is a surefire way to make yourself fulfilled. And sometimes you might not succeed by doing it the TikTok way. But here we are. We ended up figuring out we love talking about finance. We love talking about economics. We love talking about government. And we love talking about life. What is life actually about?
We love talking about money too.
Sadly. We love talking about money.
Even though we don't have anything to be talking about, but
hey,
that's okay.
That's
right?
fine. But here we are starting this thing together, and we're putting it out there. We're putting it on the internet on the internet for people to see, but maybe something comes out of this. And at the end of the day, that kind of pursuit of something you love, that could be consulting and finance too.
Sure.
There are some people that just love investing. I'm one of them. That's part of why I would want to work in, consulting or investing, consulting and finance, because I would love to get some more experience and actually become a professional in this field, and then move on and start my own business where I am the guy that sets the rules, and I am the guy that's, actually, kind of,
you're
getting fulfilled.
Yes.
Being fulfilled.
Let me ask you this before we wrap this up. What would you, obviously we know that there's a lot of uncertainty these days in the stock market in particular, right? It really in everybody is worried for their financial health, right? What are you doing with your money? Your money in particular. What do you?
You're talking about me specifically.
Yes, you specifically. What are you doing? Are you afraid? Are you buying into all this?
Not afraid.
That the tariffs are going to ruin everybody?
I'm not afraid, and I'll tell you why. The great Morgan Housel is why I'm not afraid. The Psychology of Money. It's a best-selling book, New York Times bestseller, and he writes so concisely and clearly. And what he talks about is the perfect answer to your question. How am I investing? Okay. I am not playing the same game as some people. I am not about to retire.
Right.
I also am not a day trader. I'm also not a monthly trader.
Right.
I have long-term ETFs, mutual funds, and I have a few blue chip stocks, individual stocks that I did some research on and that I will be holding probably for the rest of my life.
Right.
And that's why I'm not afraid of tariffs. I'm not afraid of this. Well, I'm not playing the same game as a hedge fund manager who is seeing his, half of his book get whatever
get wiped out.
Wiped out
in one day.
Right. and he just lost $100 million and he's thinking to himself, how am I going to feed my kids later today? For example, I'm not playing the same game. I'm here for retirement. I'm not changing a thing. If anything, I'm investing more in the stock market. Number one. Number two, I will be investing in real estate.
Good.
Real estate is extremely important.
I love real estate.
And real estate is totally important. And basically, I'm keeping everything the same and I'm keeping it consistent.
So you believe in the American economy for the next 80 years?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely, I believe in the American economy.
Are you a great American patriot?
I myself am a dual citizen of the Russian Federation and the United States. I grew up in Russia, but I love America. I am so happy to be in this country. I'm very proud to be in this country. And I also love where I came from as well. Right. I love my home country as well. But I think you can love both. I think politics is one thing, but feelings is another thing. I'm gonna turn this question right back around at you because I'm sure our listeners and our viewers, I should say, on YouTube would love to hear what you're doing with your money under all this uncertainty.
So I have this exact same approach to you, right? Any stocks that I own, I am just keeping. I'm not worried about the big sell-offs, and obviously I've lost a fair amount of money the same way you have in the last few days, the same way millions and millions of Americans have. It's a little more frightening when you're 64 and a half ready to start cashing out.
That's exactly right.
However, as I've said many times, I'm a big real estate guy. I love real estate, and I love it for two reasons, right? It's far easier to not pay. I'm not a huge fan of high taxes, as you know. Right? I think that's definitely one of my more right-leaning philosophies, and I love how real estate you can really leverage. You can leverage the tax code and the tax laws to pay fewer taxes. And using an investment vehicle like real estate, it's harder to do with stocks and bonds. But with real estate, you can. There's depreciation. There's all kinds of different tax credits that you can get. In addition to that, I think it also is everybody needs a place to live, right? There's never a time in the next 80 years where you're not going to need a place to live.
Hey, I like that.
And investing in stable, income-producing Class A, Class B properties around America in places where you think the job market is going to continue to grow at a reasonable pace, you just can't beat that. And that's where I am. Obviously I don't own any apartments yet, but I plan to in the near future. So it's what I think is going to complement just stable. I'm not a stock picker either. Stable S&P 500 exchange traded fund investing for the long run, just like Warren Buffett, investing in real, true American companies that are going to grow and provide a lot of profits.
Yeah. I mean, what else I want to say about that is, what if, would you advise somebody to be investing in the real estate market right now? And what if they don't have the money to buy a house?
Sure.
Frankly, median home prices have gone up a lot over the last few years.
Interest rates are very high still. I mean, they're not as high as they were a year or so ago, but they're still very high. And a real estate professional that I've talked to, he believes that owns hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars of real estate in Portland, He believes that 5s and 6s, so 5% and 6% ish rates are reality now, and they should be, because of our inflationary issue right now, and that they should be just in just going forward, that you should expect that.
So you're saying you shouldn't wait for,
should not try to time the market
yeah.
with real estate. You should not try to do it. You should invest now. You should invest, you should invest in just properties that you can put money into them or not, and where people need to live, and where the job market is steadily growing. That is, just can't beat that as an investment.
Yeah. Hey,
anything else we got today for today's episode?
Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about this one. I think we talked about some important things, the job market. I think the idea of jobs, the idea of an internship, because it's really on the front of our mind right now. It's the topic that we're going to be coming back to, and we're basically making this podcast for students,
pretty much,
and also for adults, that the kind of older adults that are wanting to tune into the student perspective. So I think internships and getting into the job market is one of the most important parts of the student perspective when talking about undergraduate college students.
And you're not alone out there. If you're feeling like us and just kind of confused by the whole process, you don't have a true passion yet. You haven't discovered it, and you don't want to get involved in the rat race like everybody else. That's okay. And if you do want to go into finance and consulting, or for example, because that's the theme we've stuck to, that's okay too, right? There's no right or wrong answer. You're not in a wrong place, but you do need to think about this stuff, because at some point it will matter, and your happiness and your ability to provide for your family, which is your number one goal, should be at the top of your priority.
Yeah, that's great advice, and I guess I'll just end on my advice as well. And my advice would be, if there's something out there that really is piquing your interest, whether it's a field, a sector, something like that, maybe even if you just want to get an internship at that finance position that you've always wanted, get yourself together and do yourself a favor by making a project, analyzing a balance sheet, doing, if you're into film, making a short film. If you're into business, starting a business right now, just do it today. Do it today. Don't wait. Just do it as soon as you have the idea, because that's probably the best time to do it is right now. That's what I would say. Right now. That's been a theme also with us. Let's do it right now. We got to take the trash out right now. Right now. Not in 5 minutes, not in 10 minutes, right now. Yes. Thank you very much for listening. This has been Mir and Harrison on Logic Over Impulse. We finally found a name. Let us know what you think about the name. And to those that are commenting and listening and watching on YouTube, really appreciate you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Peace. Bye-bye.